So tonight's topic is how to be a board member in a non-profit organizations and what is the legal responsibility and liability. Now we have two speakers, and the first speaker is Fang. Its real name is sometimes I don't pronounce it very well. On the legal part, and we have attorney Connie.
Yeah.
Okay. And they have lots of experience, and they specialize and all this, on all this area. And most important thing is they all believe the non-profit organizations that can link people to do many things for the other people, which is for the community, for the residents. And this is one of the very important area. And we do have, we are lucky to have wonderful people here, and they've been involved in the community by a lot. We have Philip Chong. Well, he is the CEO of Queen's Asian Resources. And as a matter of fact, I have so many things related to Queen's Asian Resources because I've been serving on their board for 11 years, and I've been volunteer at Queen's Asian Resources for 14 years. So there's so many things we are tied together, and I just cannot get out. And okay, now we have lots of business people, say for successful business people. We have Dr. Wu, and now Dr. Wu, he is the manager. He always say he himself is the manager of the Can-Man Food in Quincy. Now in Quincy, Can-Man is the biggest Chinese supermarket, and he himself run the market from ground up all the way, and is still expanding. So there is HP. Maybe you can help me though.
Okay, David Wu's here.
Oh, okay. We have, I apologize for that. We have our Congressman, David Wu. Now, David, he's been serving for us for 11 years, 6 terms as a congressman. He does so much great work for us. And now this is an opportunity. He's willing to come out so we all can learn from him. So every time when I have a chance, I grab him. I said, wow, I need to learn from you. So, and then there is many other. Oh, you put on your glasses. I think we're confused. Okay, now we have, this is wonderful, Mr. Hai-Pei. He is from Washington, D.C. He is the founder of the UCA, United Chinese American, and it's a wonderful organization, and try to engage and strengthen the Chinese in the whole nation. And I really cannot find a better word to describe him, so very likely I will ask him to do a little bit introduction for himself. And now there is another,
No, I'm fine. Don't get it, I'm fine.
Well, we do have lots of wonderful people here. I might miss some of them. Sometimes I don't remember all of them. And then we do have lots of people sign up, and they are students. But so far, they haven't shown up yet. So I believe the weather really play a very important role. And we do have, and of course we do have lots of other students, they are also volunteer. And they do sign up, it shows up, and they are not just learning, but instead of they really get their hands on. So, HP, you want to, well, today I'm asking HP Fang, and he is from Albany, New York, and he drove all the way from New York come here to help to attend this event and help me. And this is just like I cannot say how many fans. Thank you. So anyway, he will help me to do the moderation.
Thank you. You're very welcome. I'm H.P. Wang.
It's okay.
It's my honor to be here. I always like to come to Boston. There's so many great leaders, like Frank just mentioned so many. So that, especially Frank, I was in his office 3 months ago.
Yes.
I feel the passion, the energy, you want to serve the community. So it's quite an honor to be part of this. And I personally started a Papa chapter in Albany. Maybe you don't know Papa at all. Yeah, there's 3 organizations here. The Civic Education Alliance is an organization that Frank started, and Civic Leadership Forum, and APAPA. We have the National Director of the Civic Leadership Forum, our Congressman David Wu here. Then APAPA is a grassroots organization with chapters, with members throughout the country. It started in 2001. People always confuse what's the difference between this APAPA versus the CLF forum. One is a grassroots organization with chapters, with members, and CLF Foundation is a sponsor, financial sponsor, and they work together for years, a perfect match. And CLF also sponsor leadership forum for other organizations. I think Xuehai UCA, United Chinese American, also organized an event sponsored by CLF Foundation. So you see that the differences, one's a grassroots, the other one's a sponsorship. They're all non-profit, non-political, so we do not endorse candidates. And I think today the speaker probably will talk about the rules and the regulations of the non-profit organization.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming. So my name is Fang. I'm actually a board member for the State Board of Cosmetology and Barbering, and I am just going to use the podium a little bit. First of all, I'm very honored to be invited to speak to you this evening at Harvard, and the funny thing is, I'm actually in the process of applying to Harvard this fall. So tonight, I'd like to thank Mr. Frank Poon and also the Civic Leadership Forum Foundation, Dr. David Wu, for this great opportunity to be here. CLFF has truly been a visionary organization when it has come to the role of civic engagement and leadership in the Asian American communities. As a catalyst of the Asian population, giving the Asian Americans a voice for the voiceless, CLFF has been a powerful tool in taking the lack of civic engagement and leadership in many people, specifically the Asian communities, to task for its failure to quickly embrace for more actions. And to take this opportunity, I also wish to give a special thanks to someone who couldn't be here tonight, she would love to be here, but she has other commitments. And she's my best friend, my older sister, and mentor all rolled into one, Miss Fang. And she sends her regards to all of you. And she is the one who has been teaching me how to think more critical and analytical, and has shaped the foundation of my knowledge to speak in front of you tonight. So first and foremost, before I even address the topic of how to become a board member for a nonprofit, for profit companies, and state or local boards and commissions, I would like to ask everyone a question, and this is the same question that was asked of me by Ms. Wei Fang. And that question is, what time is it? Can anyone give me an answer?
The time is very true.
We're getting to a new era.
Well, if the answer is not time to act, then you shouldn't even ask yourself, how do I even become a board member? For one to know how, one must know what, why, when, and where first. Without knowing the answers to these questions of what time is it, why do I want to become a board member, when should I do it, and where should I align myself, the answer to how then becomes unimportant. In your mind, you have to decide if you are ready to act or not, and in order to pursue other steps. And now, more than ever, because of all the chaos, uncertainties, and fears due to the change of landscape in our government, we must stand up and say to ourselves, the time is now, and it is time to act. Once you have recognized that as your first step, the second question to ask yourself then becomes, why do I even want to do it? My answer is very simple and is one of my favorite quotes as well. If you want to change policies, get involved with politics. And it doesn't have to be government politics, for politics is coming from the people. It is people politics that make the world go round, but that's a different subject for another rainy day. For me, the reason as to why I wanted to become a board member for the State Board of Cosmetology is because I have grown up in the industry. My whole family, my mom, my aunts, friends, and everyone else that I know, they are involved in the beauty industry somehow. For over 20 years since my family immigrated to the United States, I was introduced to the nail industry from day one. I have seen so many of the Vietnamese people become great nail artists, trainers, and successful business owners. The profession that has given the Vietnamese people a trade that is pretty much dominated by the Vietnamese. Just in Massachusetts alone, there are over 1,500 Vietnamese-owned nail salons throughout the state and over 200,000 nail salons throughout the U.S. And of that 200,000 nail salons, 60 to 70% are owned by the Vietnamese people. However, since the Board of Cosmetology was created many, many years ago in the state of Mass, as well as other states, there has never been any Asian representation. In an industry where we have successfully dominated for so long, our voice has never been heard. So as I grew up in it, I have witnessed all the challenges and hardships one has to face as a nail technician as well as a business owner. For my family has owned like multiple salons throughout those 20 years. And during that same time frame, I have seen many rules and regulations, both state and local, have promulgated. I saw how much impact each rule and regulations has affect each and every single person that is in the beauty industry. And over again, As time went on, no one stood up or voiced their concerns. Even if someone did stand up, it's always one or two people. Therefore, the voice is not loud enough. It's only a little cripple. So because no one else wanted to stand up and fight for the right to be heard, I have realized that was my when. And every time a city or state inspector comes in to inspect the salon and told me or my family that the rules have changed and some of them make no sense whatsoever, it used to always frustrate me. Therefore, I then knew it was time for me to do something. But the only question left is where? Where can I make the most impact? Is it at the local, town, city level? Or is it at the state level? And if I were to get involved at all, I can only, with the local Board of Health or Commission, I can only represent the people in that particular town or city. But if I were to get involved at the state level, I can make a much bigger impact for everyone in the entire state. So a little more than 4 years ago, I have decided that it was time for me to do something, and where. And that's where is the Massachusetts Board of Cosmetology come into play. And let me tell you one thing, it was not a fun ride to go to get in either. So now I can officially go into the main topic of how to become a board member for a nonprofit or a state board and commission. With all that said, here are the 3 steps that you can take today to get yourself onto a nonprofit board. And the first step is identify your strengths and key skill sets. When most nonprofit boards are engaged in recruiting new members, they tend to do with specific skills or perspectives that are needed. By taking the time to identify your own strengths and skill sets, you can be ready to respond to organizations seeking someone like you. I also think that a little self-awareness is helpful in getting a feel for the culture of a board and whether you would be a good fit. The second step is to determine the type of organizations with which you want to be affiliated. After you have a solid grasp of your strengths and skill sets, you should give some serious thought to the types of organizations you want to support as a board member. And one key question that may help this process could be, what groups do you currently give money or volunteer for? Remember that as a board member, you have fiduciary or financial and legal responsibility for the organization as one of its leaders. As I tell people who want to get into fundraising, you should focus on organizations where you have a passion for the mission and for the work, as you will be expected to give your time, talent, and treasure to this organization. This passion be needed to keep you going through committee meetings, interviews for senior leaders, fundraising events, and the many other things you'll be doing as a board member. And finally, put yourself out there, then keep your eyes and ears open. Now that you have your strength and the kinds of organizations you want to serve, it's time to put yourself out there. Here are a few ways to explore potential board opportunities. Reach out directly. If there are specific organizations whose board you would like to be interested in joining, you should get introduced or be introduced yourself to the executive leadership or board member and share your interests. Who knows, you may be reaching out as they are looking to expand their board. If they aren't trying volunteering with the organization outside of board capacity. Volunteering is a great way to learn more about the organizations, get to know the staff, and be the first to know about potential opportunities. Let your network know whether or not you have specific groups in mind. You should take some advice from some of the people that you know. And after deciding what you wanted to pursue, then you can share your interests. LinkedIn, BoardServe, BoardNet USA. That will allow you to post a profile to be matched or viewed by nonprofit groups seeking board members. And be open to alternatives. If you aren't ready for a formal board position or one just simply isn't available, consider junior boards. And as I stated earlier, it's never too early or too late to get involved with an organization you care about. Offer to volunteer or take on pro bono projects, as I did with the Stolen Chamber of Commerce, the Vietnamese Chamber of Commerce, and many other community initiatives. So now that I have covered all the main questions and answers, I can tell you that I currently serve on the Massachusetts State Board of Cosmetology and Barbering. And believe it or not, I am the first Asian to ever be appointed on this board. And out of all the 28 different boards under the Division of Professional Licensure, this is the most political board out of all. And recently, I have submitted my application to become a commissioner for the Asian American Commission. And I encourage that each and every one of you who are interested in doing something for the community, doing something for the Asian Americans population throughout Massachusetts, you should check out the Asian American Commission and get involved. But in the meantime, it has been a very exciting, educational, and rewarding journey for the last few years. And I truly felt that our voices are being heard right now. However, we still have a long way to go and much to do. If you feel that you need to be heard, stand up and do something. It is time to act. If you don't want to be part of the problem, be part of the solution. So again, I thank Frank, Dr. David Wu, and HP for hosting this conference and inviting me to address all of you tonight. Enjoy the rest of your night, and it's with the utmost honor to be part of something that's so important, for it's just the beginning of the fight.
I want to ask if any of you have any specific questions, so please ask so we can all learn.
Sure, and thank you so much for sharing your story. My question is, how many hours on average that you spend being that board member on a weekly basis?
So basically, this is an appointment by the governor. And as a board member for any state appointment, you're considered a special employee. You don't work for the state per se. It's on a voluntary basis. But you are still held accountable for every decision that you make. And we meet once a month, and it's a full day, from 9:30 to 5 or whenever it ends. And when we got appointed by Governor Baker, when I got appointed back in May of 2015, we were given an executive order to revise, review, and rescind all rules and regulations for the board. And it was the first time that the Board of Cosmetology, Barbering, and Electrology all merged into one. So we actually had to meet more often. We actually met like a few times a month, just in order to review all the rules and to propose for new regulations to put in place. And that process actually started about, I believe, like over a year now. And we're still waiting for the final draft to be approved by the Attorney General's office.
So other than the time that you're spending at the meeting, do you have to spend any time doing any research on the law or have any private discussions with other board members offline?
I actually do. So before every meeting, we have different agendas or different topics that has to be discussed. And prior to discussion, we had to do a lot of reading and research. And this is a very, very unique board because it actually touches all three branches of government, judicial, legislative, and executive. So we basically pass rules and regs, but we also implement and penalize. So we actually work on cases and everything else. So any of the salon has any sort of violation, we also penalize them as well.
This is wonderful.
Good evening, good night. Good evening, everyone. My name is Connie Dai. First, I want to thank you, Frank, and APAPA, CLF, and CEA to give me this great opportunity to speak to you about responsibilities and the duties and potential liabilities of a board member of a nonprofit. So hopefully after I talk, you are still motivated and encouraged to become a board member rather than shy away from it, because every responsibility that you take in your life and your work carries some sort of liabilities. If you do it in the right way, I believe you will achieve your goal. First, I should confess that I am very far away from becoming an expert on a nonprofit board. I have been personally involved on the board of 2 nonprofits. The first one that I've been involved in a little over a year was Sharon Chinese Association. I live in Sharon, so that association was established about a year ago with my pro bono work, and I cannot say no to my fellow residents in Sharon to be part of the organization and provide the legal services and other help if they need. And I've also been a board member for CEA, where Frank founded and with the help of APAPA and the COF. I've been a board member for a short time period, and I have to say it has been a great ride with CAE, and I probably bring much more, I have much more share with you from the perspective of being a lawyer here with regard to the topic rather than my practical experience of being a board member of a nonprofit. So if you can look at the first slides and responsibilities of a nonprofit board member, it's quite interesting that most of our firm's clients are Chinese, Asian clients, especially Chinese. And over the past 2 years, I have seen a growing demand for nonprofit, for the legal service of nonprofits. And there is a lot of nonprofit organizations in my community. It's just coming out like bamboo sprout of the ground. I think, as I'm thinking about it, I think part of the reason is because it has been the time that a lot of people immigrant to this country 10, 20, 30 years ago, very well established here, financial-wise, have the house, as the kids going to college or in high school. This is the time to think about, I need to go back to the community. And there was a greater cause in my life than what I'm doing right now, just working for an employer and making salaries. And that, I believe that is the reason that has driven the establishment of a lot of nonprofits in our community. I see nonprofits in different kind of fields, such as science, nonprofits that encourage people to learn more in science, education, public civic engagement, education and community services. Most of that, I believe there's more than 10 towns surrounding Massachusetts here has established a Chinese association in the town. This is what the community has been doing for the past 2 or 3 years, which is great to see. So if you're going to be sitting on the board of a nonprofit, your responsibilities, if I can only use one word to describe it, it's a stewardship. What is a stewardship? Nonprofit is considered this as a parent to child. You always take care of your child. You always make decisions to the best benefit, to the best interest of your children. So if I'm sitting on the board of CEA, CEA is my child. Every decision I make, everything that I do is for the benefit of CEA. I take care of it because it's my child. And that if you break down by the stewardship, what you need to do, first you have to believe in the mission of this organization. If you don't even stand by the mission, if you don't even believe the mission of this organization will carry out, and will actually create benefits and do what it meant to do to the constituents and the members, it's very hard to be a board member. Because you know what? Part of your job is to advocate for that nonprofit. A lot of the nonprofits has not really problem. It is a universal challenge to raise money. And you need the money to run an organization, even if it's a small one, even if it's a startup. And part of our job is to go out and help to advocate and help this organization run money. The money could come from different sources. There's government grants, there is corporate donation, there is individual donation. And as a matter of fact, in order to do this speech, I did some research. There's 1/3 of the nonprofits in the United States are getting government grants, whether it be federal government or state government or local municipalities. And there is about 60% of the nonprofits that serving human services are getting grants from federal governments. So there is a lot of grants out there in the federal government, and we just need to know we just need to have if our goal and the mission is in line with the purpose of the grant, and as a nonprofit member or the board, we should work with the volunteers and write the grant proposal and trying to get funds from the government. And you might also be setting compensation for the executive committees or for the executive officers. For a lot of nonprofits, a lot of people are volunteering. I've also been involved with NACINA, which is New England Information Networking Association, not as a board member, just as an officer, volunteer officer. I've been volunteer with them for about 5-6 years. As a matter of fact, this nonprofit has been there for 20 years, and at each year we have around 40 to 50 volunteer officers. None of them is getting paid. We don't have any payrolls, and everybody, think about this, on average, when I'm running a program, I'm responsible for running a career conference each January and February. For these 2 months time period, I put in more than 10 to 15 hours each week to run this program, not getting paid a penny. If I don't have the passion, if I don't believe it can do good for the members, I'm not gonna do it. I just cannot do it. It's gonna be very difficult. You might also be helping the executive committee to nominate new hires. If one board member, for whatever reason, resigns or removed, you need to have a new board member. Reach out your resources, reach out your connections. Take advantage of your connections to provide the appropriate person to this organization to find the right new board of directors. And the other thing, some of the nonprofits, before you join them, they actually tell the board of directors, you know what, we expect you personally donate money to this nonprofit too. If you know this early, if you think you cannot donate, don't join it. Most of the nonprofits don't have this upfront, but some of them do. And the other thing that I've been doing is I'm a pro bono counsel, which means I volunteer my time to provide legal services to CEA and also for Sharon Chinese Association. I believe this is one way of me giving back to the community, and this is one way of me that discharge my responsibilities and duties for the nonprofits that I'm sitting on the board. So let's move on to duties. So when we talk about duties, that's going to be a lot of legal talk. So I know that there is at least one lawyer sitting in the group, which is David. David, correct me if I say anything wrong or not accurate. In general, nonprofit board member owes the nonprofit a fiduciary duty. And you probably heard of this word a lot, fiduciary duty. Well, what exactly is fiduciary duty? Let me tell you this. This type of duty is, fiduciary duty largely is coming from common law. It's not a duty that's set by contractual relationships. That means that once you become a board member of a nonprofit, just by virtually being a board member, the fiduciary duty is created. You don't have to enter into a contract, sign a contract with this nonprofit, say, I'm a board member, now I owe a fiduciary duty in the company. Have you signed a contract with the state? No. Anybody who's sitting on a nonprofit, you don't have to sign a contract. You sign up as a member of the board, you owe the fiduciary duty to the organization. What does that mean? Fiduciary duty is broken down in general to 2 duties. One is called the duty of care. The other one is called the duty of loyalty. Duty of care, just as it sounds, I put the legal definition there and with the underlines on the key words. Duty of care is basically you act with care as an ordinary prudent person employed in this position. And what that means is, as a regular ordinary person, like I said, as a regular parent to your child, you usually, to your child, I mean, not kids that are minors, you cook the breakfast, you prepare the lunch, you cook the dinners, you make sure they dress properly, you make sure they do the homework, you make sure they behave well in the schools, and your responsibility is bring them up as a child that, good for the society and can live a happy and a financially responsible life. So this is the same type of duty you should exercise to the organization that is sitting on the board. I will give you a breakdown here. The duty of care, the type of duty of care that you can exercise is as simple as if there is board meetings, try your best to attend board meetings. Most nonprofits hold board meetings on a quarterly basis. Some might be more frequent, and try to make your time to attend board meetings, because these are the times where information will be shared, that the votes might be carried out, the decision will be made, and unless you do a lot of offline talking with other board members or the executive committees, otherwise that will be the opportunity that you exercise your duty. And you also need to, the executive committee might need you to make some decisions on something. Before you make decisions, don't rush into any decisions. Always make sure that you have the right information to make the right decisions. That decision has to be an informed decision. If the executive committee asks you to make some decisions and you find that I don't have enough information, I'm lacking of information, or the information I'm given is incomplete, you should simply tell the CEO, say, Frank, I need so and so and so information in order for me to make the decision. If you want me to make the decision on these information you give it to me, I just can't. If you really want me to make the decision, I will make my decision, and with a disclaimer saying that this decision is made on 1, 2, 3 information, which, by the way, I don't believe it's complete information. So don't be shy. Don't just take the words from the executive committee. Say, be very curious, be investigative. And because what you want to do is to act back. You want the decision to be in the best interest of the organizations, not best interest of Frank, not best interest of myself. And sometimes you might sacrifice or make the decisions to the best interest of the organization at the cost of sacrificing your own interest, that sometimes could be financial interest. This is what the duty of fiduciary duty means here. Once you get the information, study the information, ask questions. If sometimes you might believe, you say, that information I'm getting, I'm not sure if you give me a good explanation. I might need a legal opinion here, or I might need a certified public accountant to explain to me how the tax works here, or how the books works here. And once I have that information, I will make the right decision. So do that if you need to. And like I mentioned before, you might need to use your resources to reach out to the people that you know to help this nonprofit run a program. As CEA, we are doing a lot of programs, such as public leadership engagement, public speaking, and what I'm trying to do, as I believe the other board member tried to do, is to reach out our resources to get the right speakers, because you can expect all of the officers here, executive committee, are working on a volunteer basis. There will be too much burden and the pressure on Frank or on just 1 or 2 executive officers to find 10 to 15 speakers for 4 forums. That would be a lot of the work. So if we combine everybody's resources, this goal is so easily to be achieved. And you also should, if your nonprofit is soliciting money from the public, you should also pay special attention to the solicitation mission, where the money is coming from, how the money is coming from, and how the money is spent. Years ago, I don't remember which year, I came across a case, which is, I write the name down. One of the projects, the United States against Monterey County AIDS Project. And what the government says is that this nonprofit misused $2.8 million that was given by the federal government. That when the government gives the money, they're going to tell you, we want the money to spend on this specific area, specific programs. You better do a very good record keeping and write the books, get your book ready, put everything in the right information. In the end of the day, you're going to have to show the government, hey, this $2.8 million is used for the specific goals and areas that use that can be used. What happened, I believe this company misused the money. They did not do a very good bookkeeping. Even they come around, they say, yes, we did use it for the right purpose as consistent with your goal, but they couldn't show the sufficient records to show that the money is properly used. In the end of the day, they were fined and they were imposed large penalties. I don't remember how much, but this is what happened. And duty of loyalty is a much more interesting topic. It comes in as a little bit complicated legal concept than duty of care. Duty of loyalty arises, first and most, you should always be loyal to the profit that you're serving as a board member, which sometimes also means, as I previously mentioned, that the decisions you made is for the best interest of the organization, might be at the cost of sacrificing your own interest. What might happen is that there sometimes may be conflict of interest, or what in the legal world we call the self-dealing, that arises between you your company or the company that you're involved versus the nonprofit that you're serving as a board. There might be a conflict of interest, or there may be, let me give you an example. Say, use myself as an example. Right now, my firm is providing volunteer pro bono services to CEA. Let's assuming that my law firm is providing paid services to CEA, okay? So as a board member, my law firm is providing paid services to CEA. If that is the case, I'm not saying I cannot do this. Yes, I can. But by law and the best practices, there is 3 things I need to do. First, I need to fully disclose to the board that my law firm is providing paid legal service to CEA. Second, I have to disclose to the board the terms and the conditions of my services, such as I'm incorporating this nonprofit. This is, if I do it hourly, this is my hourly rate. If I do it on a flat fee, this is my flat fee. At the same time, I need to disclose to the board that while the same services I provide to the other companies, I charge the same, or I charge higher rate. What I cannot do is I cannot charge CEA a higher rate than I charge to the other companies. It's like taking advantage of being a board member here. And the third, that's the best practice, is that the board of directors need to vote to approve me as a board member to do business with CEA. And when that vote is carried out, I cannot be a voting member because I'm not interested in the board of directors, because I'm directly involved in this transaction. So I have to be excused as to cast the vote to this decision. So these 3 steps is very necessary to take. As a matter of fact, in our bylaws, I do believe we have this conflict of interest section set forth in our bylaws. All the nonprofits I recommend all the nonprofits do this. If you have a good policy, and if you require any transactions with that same nature or similar nature being documented as to disclosure is made, the terms and conditions of the transaction, and there is a meeting minutes or consent setting forth that all the board members voted and approved the transaction, you're less likely to be in trouble down the road. There is another doctrine, what we call, it's part of duty of loyalty, what we call the corporate opportunity. What that means is that it actually happens a lot in a lot of trade associations. What that means is there could be a business opportunity out there that would have been taken by the organization, yet you learned it in the capacity as a board member for this organization, you took it. You took it before that opportunity was presented to a nonprofit, which might cause the damage to this nonprofit, and you benefited. Could be financially, maybe not financially. Give you an example. I read, again, I think this is a case too. It could be a case. I don't remember exactly where I read it. There is a hospital association that consists of a bunch of hospitals in a state. And one of the board of directors is also a founder or the largest shareholder of a hospital. He learned at that nonprofit's board meeting that a very wealthy individual in town has set aside money to give to hospitals or associations that in that nature. And he jumped on this opportunity, solicited that wealthy individual, got the money from him to his own hospital, rather than that money could go to the organization that he served as a board. That is a very clear violation of the fiduciary duty, specifically duty of loyalty. So if he learned that opportunity independently, rather than in the capacity as a board member of the nonprofit, I'm actually not sure. I'm leaning towards that, yes, he probably can take it, but I'm not sure. It might be depends on that particular state's case law, because like I said, it's a lot of times there is precedence, the case laws might give a guidance of what you're gonna do under the circumstances. One thing I wanna mention is Massachusetts is a state where the case law established there is a very higher standard for fiduciary duty, especially duty of loyalty, regardless of it for a profit company or non-profit company. Even if you have a shareholder agreement, I'm talking about for-profit business, it's the same for non-profit. If you work for a profit company, you have a shareholder agreement. On that shareholder agreement, you actually specifically says, any shareholder learned an opportunity that could have been good for the company, you are very free to go in and take it. You don't have the obligation to bring to the opportunity for the company to say no, that you can take it. Even if you have that provision in your contract, if something happens, somebody bring a lawsuit to the court most likely will not uphold. They will not uphold that clause. They might blue pencil that provision says it doesn't work here in Massachusetts, even though you sign it. You know what? Guess what? Because Massachusetts, the case law established, the shareholders and the partners in the business owe a very heightened, higher standard, higher than usual standard of fiduciary duty to your members. This is also the reason a lot of companies want to register in Delaware, because Delaware's corporate law gives a lot of freedom to the partners and shareholders of the company as to the fiduciary duty and duty of loyalty. If you have that provision in your shareholder agreement, and if something happened, most likely the court will uphold that law. They will say, okay, we realize that. You know what, you said it here in the contract, you sign it. Any shareholder or partner can take that opportunity without presenting this to the company. This is what they do, and we respect the contract, you sign it. So I'm actually going a little bit to the profit company, but I think the principle works here too. It's the same. Last but not least, I want to address this. It's not on the slide. I added in when I'm driving here. I want to mention about potential liabilities of non-profit board members. As the areas that the non-profit board member can possibly be held personally liable is that if you intentionally, maliciously make some decisions that will damage the organization, you most likely will be held personally liable. And if there is a case, what the court will use is some rule called the business judgment rule. What they meant is that before you make the decision for the company, going back to what I said before, always get reliable information, get sufficient information. Based on this information, you make the decisions. If you make the decisions based on the information that's available to you, if it turns out to be damaged, turn out to be a bad decision for the company or damage the company's interest, you most likely are not going to be held liable. Guess what? Because that decision is an informed, wise, intelligent decision made on reliable information. And if you're not making decisions on reliable information, or that there should be information you should have asked for, you didn't ask for, and you might be held liable. So in order to minimize there is other area that's also possible is not applicable to our small startup nonprofit. To large nonprofits, you have a lot of employees, and employment law or unfair, unlawful employment practice could also be an area that the board members or the executive committee officers might be held liable. If you owe employee back wages, if you owe overtime wages, if you misclassify employees versus independent contractors, guess what? The officers of the board of directors might be personally held liable if you personally involved making that decisions. So these are the things the nonprofit could do to minimize the liabilities for the nonprofit board member. First is to write the indemnification clause in your bylaws, which, Fred, we have it, don't worry. I have it under control. Indemnification clause means that if for any reason the nonprofit and each board of directors are getting sued, the legal fees that the director need to expense to defend their own lawsuit should be paid by the company, the organization, unless in the end of the day, that board member is going to be held personally liable by the court to the wrongful doings. Then he's going to have to pay his own legal fees. Okay. Second, we can do is the good news. A lot of the states has immunity statutes for nonprofits and its board of directors. In Massachusetts, we have immunity statutes, which means our potential liabilities, when I say our, I mean both the organization and the nonprofit board members, is usually limited to $20,000 each, the organization and each board of directors. There could be exceptional circumstances, but that's the general rule. However, the immunity clause is not going to be applicable to if you violate the duty of loyalty. So if you maliciously, intentionally take the opportunity, damage to the nonprofit, that's not covered. If that's covered, you talk about some criminal act could also be covered by insurance or indemnification. That's going to come to an absurd result or outcome. The third thing you can do is we should put it's either going to be in bylaws, which we have, or you can draft a separate procedures and policies setting forth the decision-making process by the board of directors, what information you're getting to make the decisions, and if like the examples I gave you, if me as a board member is doing business with the companies, what kind of procedure we take to do the full disclosure, to get the board vote for this, to approve the decisions. Everything, it's better to be documented and put in the policy that if anything happens down the road, these writings or documents could be very good evidence to show we have the policy put in place and we actually implement and we execute the policy. We do what the policy requires us to do. And the last but not least is insurance. There is a board of directors errors and omission insurance out there that every nonprofit should buy if you have sufficient fund. It gives you certain coverage. It usually covers the unlawful employment practice, and it covers breach of duty to some degree. Like I said, if it's negligent breach, it's sort of by accident or you don't understand, you should not have done so, but you did so, it's usually covered, but it's not going to cover gross negligence and a malicious, intentional violation of your fiduciary duty. That's not covered. Okay, hopefully I'm not boring everybody to sleep. I know it's late, and that concludes my presentation. I would be happy to entertain any questions. I get excited to talk about my own topic.
I know in many other companies, just like a non-profit or for-profit organizations, when something goes wrong, and lots of people say, okay, I better get out, so I'm resigned. So if they resign, do they get away from the mess?
Oh, very good question. Depends on the time period where this allegation occurs. If somebody comes to sue our CEA tomorrow, and I can say I'm getting out, but the facts that their suit is based on applied to something happened while I was a board of director. Even if you get out tomorrow, it's not applicable because the time period that they sued and the allegation was made is the time period that you served as a board of directors.
Okay, now this is a great chance to ask questions. I myself have learned so much, and please come up with some questions.
For the reliability, if someone, for example, tripped in your organization's building to get a lawsuit, which is way more than what you insured or your organization can afford, will the board member be responsible for?
Okay, good. But first, that type, if your nonprofit has rented an office, and you should definitely carry a liability insurance. That liability insurance should include torts, which, like you said, a personal injury. If somebody walk along or somebody visits your office, get tripped on the stairs, that usually should be covered. If they want to sue, in that circumstances, most likely they're only going to sue the organizations. unless they have knowledge that the certain stairs, that let's say that he tripped on the stairs and the stairs has been cracked for a long time. And as the only directors, as the only executive officer there who works in the office, you see this every day for the past 6 months, you should have exercised the duty and duty of care to have it fixed, but you didn't. So you possibly could be sued. But I would say most likely you should have the liability insurance cover that type of suit.
Another question, could you address about, because most we talk about 501c3 type of organizations. How do you protect the organization from taking over unfriendly by a separate group of people?
Sorry, I didn't hear. So how do we protect the 501c3 from?
Well, a lot of organizations is based on the membership. The membership pretty much decided the board members as well as the business of the organization. So, and most of the time is the board membership is very loose. Anybody could pay the bill, become a membership. Then how do you protect the organization by unfriendly taking over by some other group of people or organization?
Oh, we talk about taking over a non-profit to another company or another non-profit?
Organization, yeah.
Okay.
I assume he says kind of take over leadership of, like to take over a
maybe
board.
inside that non-profit, that the leadership,
If you
there
flood
could
that-
be political struggle or
Right,
fight
yeah.
of one group pushing out the
If you
other.
flood that organization with all the new members, with one purpose of taking over the board, things like that.
It sort of sounds like a power of struggle that could happen in coffee company as well, right? I think one thing you can do is to draft a very well thought bylaws or articles of association or bylaws that put the provisions there that give the maximum corporate governance or nonprofit governance as to the quorum of the board of directors, how many people should be there to make the meeting valid, and how many votes that can be carried out to do what. So I do acknowledge that if you have a nonprofit with members, you have 3 layers of people with different responsibilities and different rights. You have members actually at the top, sort of like a shareholder for a profit company. You have members, you have board of directors, you have executive officers. So members, I imagine members should have the right to vote for the board of directors. Board of directors should have the right to hire and fire the executive officers. So make sure you, in the beginning, you draft a bylaws, and the bylaws is well thought in terms of what percentage of the vote can make what decisions. So in order to sort of, to carry out that mechanism to do a better corporate control.
Thank you.
Okay, just a very simple question. You talked about indemnity of board members. What if that nonprofit doesn't have enough money to cover any lawsuits? And second question, you have any sense of, like just in general, percentage or many or not so many or very few nonprofit has bought insurance? That's 2 questions. If you do have time, like if you can address, the solicitation of fund outside of your state where you're incorporated. In this day and age, you have a website. If there's a donate now button with most of them, and as far as I understand, that's actually have some legal ramifications.
Yeah, the last question, I'm pretty sure I cannot answer at this point. I think I've done some research for our clients a year and a half ago, and I don't remember the answers to the last question. The first question, if the nonprofit does not have enough money to defend a lawsuit, I guess one thing you can do is to borrow. The second thing you can do is to find a pro bono attorney to do this. I mean, I'm not being sarcastic, but that's the way to go. I don't know what else you can do. Because it does take money and effort even to get you dismissed from the defendant list, assuming that the plaintiff could be suing you on a malicious frivolous lawsuit. You know, you still have to understand, you still have to spend money and resources to get dismissed. The second question is about what is
insurance.
Insurance. What specific is?
What, do you have a sense of kind of like percentage, how many do
To
things
buy
like that,
the arrows and
buy
ocean
insurance for the
I don't know any statistics, but from my personal experiences that for the startup nonprofits where you have insufficient fund and you have all the people working for you as volunteers, what I know is usually less than 1/3 by, I think it's about less than 1/3 is by insurance in the first year or two operation, but I'm seeing more and more started looking into buying insurance once they operated for more than 2-3 years. You know, that's, everybody know that you should buy it, but sometimes it's a practicality. I mean, don't have enough money. We only have $3,000 each year coming. We're going to spend $1,500 buying the insurance, and given the program we're running, I think it's analysis of the risk. It's a risk analysis. Sometimes it tends to be a business decision, not a legal decision.
Thank you. So I'm looking for another great questions.
For a non-profit national organization, do you think the local chapter should apply a separate tax exemption code number? No.
I
Or
can't be
just
sure,
use
but I
the national
don't.
level?
I can't be sure, but I don't think so, because the tax exemption designation is coming from IRS. Assume IRS is the federal internal revenue service. It covers the whole country. I'm not sure. I probably need to do more research to figure out. So what you're saying is it possible that the different local chapters are doing different things?
Well,
Because one could be, no, okay, they carry exactly the same mission as the headquarters. In that case, and most likely, I think they only need to apply for one 501c3 or 501c4 as a pack from IRS.
how about bylaws?
Bylaws?
Bylaws.
Oh, usually one nonprofit, you only need to have one bylaws, and even though you have 20 local
20
chapters.
chapters, still one bylaw.
Yeah. I think so.
So if an organization is being sued, what kind of impact does that have on the organization? For example, if you're receiving funding from state or federal level, and you actually have a pending lawsuit, does that have any impact on the organization's ability to get more funding?
You know, I don't have any personal experience, but I imagine so. I think if you are receiving funding to carry out government programs, and first your financial capability will be interrupted if you have to use the money to defend the lawsuit. And second, the government, in the interim of the lawsuit, pending lawsuit, they might take away the existing programs. And I'm not sure if they will take away the money they've already given out to you, but for the future subsequent programs, they might say, you know, I'm not going to give you continual programs anymore because of what you've been involved. Also depends on for what cause of actions they are sued. If they were sued on misuse the government money, of course, that sounds like a slam dunk case. But if they are sued for the other reasons, let's say a personal injury, somebody got tripped in their facilities, that might not give the government a reason to retrieve their fundings or say no to the future fundings. Correct.
And I want to tell about this book. This book is an inspirational story, and the title is "We Can Achieve It." Now, in this book, there's a total of 12 stories from 12 people. They sharing their story, and they tell their experience, and they build everything from ground up. Sometimes it's zero, sometimes it's negative to today's positions that they have. And throughout the process, just like when we talk about, throughout the growth, and everyone will facing obstacle and resistance. So quite a lot of people, they feel like, well, when it comes to a certain point, I just give up, forget it, I'm done. So, and then, especially in the old days, in my age, and we are competing with people to people, which is easy. nowadays with the younger generation, which is quite a lot sitting here, and they are competing with computer, robots, artificial intelligence. It's pretty much guaranteed lose. So this book with the story, and I hope one of the story that can help people when they come across obstacle, and that can re-energize them, carry on, keep going. The world is still turning. So I'm going to pass along this book. Now, what we do is, I haven't got a chance to mention about CEA. Now, CEA is a Civic Education Alliance. Now, we are getting great help from CLF, which is Civic Leadership Foundation, and we also getting help from APAPA, Boston chapter, which is Asian Pacific Islander American Public Affairs. Now, we aiming at a similar goal, but we do slightly differently. With CEA, we want to train leaders, we want to develop leaders, and we focus on empowering people and also engaging people. Now, by empowering people is mostly towards the younger generations. We align with many organizations. We provide all the help, training, and to encourage the younger generations to move on, move up. So be a leader in the family, be a leader in the classroom, be a leader in a different level of cooperation, and also be a leader in the government. So, but all this is up to them. So they make their choices, and we will assist them to move up step by step as much as we can. Now we're getting funding from Civic Leadership Foundation. Without them, and we are dragging our feet. We're going very, very slow. So with them, also with the expertise, say for example with David Wu, he is from the Civic Leadership Foundation. I learned so much from him. And so he is not just training myself, and through his skill, knowledge, and everything else, and I can pass it along to the community, and hopefully we can help some of the younger generations to move up and to help the Asians to voice, have a louder voice. And with APAPA, same thing, they also develop young leaders, and the eventual goal is they hope they can be one of the public officer. So they can be at the city level, state level, and federal level, and moving up. So that means you can see we are all different level. And as long as anyone come in, and we will find some program that fit them. Now with us, with Civic Education Alliance, and we talk about the empowering. We also have the engaging part. Now the engaging part mostly is we provide community service that engage people. We help people of all ages, from young to elderly. And we also provide programs to help people to become a leader. So our focus is leaders on all levels. And so we also provide kind of family support. Say, for example, we always talk about the younger generation come to this country, and basically their mind and their thoughts is all American. And with the older populations, then they still maintain with the original culture. So very often there will be a generation gap. So what we want to do is we want to provide as much as we can to help all different levels. So eventually their conflict will be a lot less, and that will help them to build a better relationship. And and also we also have the cultural activities part. Say for example, this Saturday, which is 2 days away, we will have a we will have a celebration of the Chongyang Festival. Now the Chongyang Festival is lately they use it as respect elders and also remembering their ancestors. So this is very good. And as a matter of fact, all this was brought up by high pay. when he mentioned about, did you do anything? I said, what it is. And when he mentioned about, respecting elders and remembering ancestors, I said, this is very important. Definitely something I have to do. So right away, we put up a program, and we encourage people to come together. So this Saturday, we're expecting somewhere like from 50 to 80 people, or even though it might be, go beyond 100 people. I'm not surprised. But then all this is we want to share with the community and bring them together, engaging them together. Because in United States, very important part is what federal look at is your vote. We also do citizenship assistance. So we encourage people to become U.S. citizens. We encourage people to learn about the voters' education so they understand what it is. So all this come together and we build the power to support people who later on run for public office. Or even, or on the other hand, not necessarily run for public office, at least we can voice our opinion so we get some attention. So this is what we do. So now I want to, hey, Casey, come over here. Can you help me to distribute this book? At least one each. So thank you very much for joining us today. And, very nice to meet all of you. And there is some information, and so down the road, you can go to our website and check out what it is. Please give us some suggestions, because we want to service the community better. And we need lots of mentors like you. So bring it together. And yeah, this is wonderful. Now, before I drop the microphone, I want to ask David Wu, with his experience he want to share with everyone, and also Han Pei, which is wonderful. I'm so happy that he can be here. So, David and Han Pei. I'm sorry to take up your time, but those are valuable time.
I have no idea.
Now, David, he is a 6-term congressman. And, just like if you ask me to talk about what he did to the community, it might take days. So I'm going to pass it to you first. Thank you very much.
David, translate.
No, thank you very much. This is a great presentation, Dan, Connie. And Connie, that was just a brilliant legal exposition. And I thought it was going to blow by a lot of people. We'll get a lot of good questions, so obviously not. And that was really, really good. Good stuff. It's really an honor to be here. And I haven't been back to Cambridge in quite some time. And it's really good to be here and be with you. We had a really good presentation tonight. I think Frank did a good job of pulling together a panel on boards. What I did for a number of years was to serve in the United States Congress. And one of the things that I do now is to help train people, inform people about how to run for political office and seek appointed office. And that's the work of CLF Foundation. And we go around the country giving grants to form civic leadership forums, or set up forums. And forums, all politics are local. So we have trainers who are local politicians or local appointed officials, and the audience are people who would consider running for office, or maybe seeking an appointed office, a commission, or a judgeship in the next 5 to 10 years. And do hands-on training. This is how you do speaking. This is how you do fundraising. This is how you do door knocking. This is how you put together a campaign team. It's really nuts and bolts stuff. We don't do policy, we don't do politics, but it's hands-on, nuts and bolts stuff that people need to know if they are going to seek appointed or elective office at some point in their life. And we really want to encourage people to do that and give them the tools to do that. That's what CLF Foundation does. If anybody wants to participate, please let me or HP or Frank.
I can make the link.
I got it.
So now the second part is UCA, and it's wonderful. These organizations, and as a matter of fact, they spread out the word and engaging so many Chinese, because the word is United Chinese American. So they engage so many Chinese. Now, it's not just the Chinese. Basically, what they do is all Asian, but they more focus on the Chinese. So make sure you can be there. So you can,
I really, I think everybody, it's very late, you should read it. I'll just be quick, one word, not about the UCA, but that will be another time, another day. When I came in here, I'm a few minutes late, and I heard people talking about what's the definition of civil engagement. I don't have a very good way to say that. We all feel that. But one thing I want to say is that I shared a lot with other people that, that Chinese American, and by far, by extension, Asian Americans, I think we're doing okay, even quite good in terms of our personal life, family life, or private life. But we're not doing very okay in a public life, civic life, or political life. Or I think that distinction is very important, because if you are only focusing on your family life, you might be doing okay, your kids might be doing okay, but you're losing all the big time on the other side. How can you have a full-blown real citizenship when you have only 50% of your American way of life? And this is a society that built on democracy, and especially built on, if you live in a small town, it's a really autonomous, self-governing society from bottom up. If you're losing out on that, you're losing out, you're educating your kids, talk about the dinner topic on the dinner table, you don't talk anything about what's happening around you, your school, your country, you ended up a loser in a way. And I always say that, you heard me saying that a lot, that actually, that doesn't matter whether it's Indian American or not, but Chinese Americans are losing out actually big time to Indian Americans. And in a good way, I think that's encourage us to think hard. Why Indian Americans are so much more successful in public sector, in civic sector, in political sector? If you think about Wall Street and think about Silicon Valley, the Indian Americans, number of the senior management positions, they have 4 or 5 times more than Chinese Americans. And we came here to this country 100 years earlier than Indians. And by the way, the language is not that a big deal, because half of the Chinese are born here anyway. Our English are much better than the Bangalore English, right? So you can't just say that their English is better or this or that. So I think through the case of the success of Indians here, and that should really point to our relative weakness in the Chinese Americans' lack of civic participation in a very broad way, from your family dinner table upward. And so lastly, I would say that we come to this country 170 years ago to mine gold. I don't think too many of us got rich, but I think this time, the real gold now, the gold mountain to climb, the gold mountain of digging, is for Chinese American and Asian American to get into civic and the political process, get into public service, getting to give back to the society. We have a huge way to go and huge room to improve there. And that is a real gold mountain. Thank you.
So thank you very much. It sums up with your today's talk, and I hope everyone feel like you gained something well, at least for me, I gained a lot. And not more, beyond knowledge-wise, and I also I make lots of friends here. And this is the most important part, being a human being in this earth. So, so I want to, now, we do have, keep coming up, we will have different civic leadership forum. And the next one right now we're planning on will be December 6th, I believe. So the next topic we talked about, we haven't finalized the topic, but we want to talk about encourage the Asians to get involved with the corporation and also with the government. And basically is diversity. So I have most of your email. So I'm going to make sure all the information will send it to you. And I look forward to see you all, plus all your friends. Bring them over. And it won't be here, it will be at, Gary, where is it? It will be at Northeastern University. And so I will send you all the information, and thank you again for coming, and this is wonderful. Allow me to have a chance to know you all. Yeah, thank you.